let's jump right into this. 14. I mean, that's the number that just leaps out, doesn't it, when you look at these sources we're digging into today?
It really does. 14 children.
Associated with, well, one person across 4 different mothers. That's what's detailed in these articles and reports we have here. It sort of paints this picture, almost like he's building his own universe.
Mm-hmm. It's a powerful way to put it. And the scale, like you said, it's definitely the first thing that hits you from this material. Really makes you want to look closer.
Absolutely. So our mission for this deep dive really is to take these specific sources, the ones focusing on Elon Musk, his children, the women he's had children with, and just unpack what's actually in them.
Yeah, the key facts, maybe some surprising bits, the different ways things are described.
Exactly. You want to cut through all the other noise and just give you a clear, kind of concise understanding based purely on what this material lays out.
Think of it like we're navigating this, complex map of relationships. But we're only using the map these specific sources provide. We're just pointing out the landmarks shown there.
Right. Good analogy. And following that map, the story, at least in these sources, it really starts with his first wife, Justine Wilson.
Mm-hmm. They met way back college days,
Yeah.
Queen's University.
And there's this detail Justine apparently shared, it's recounted in one source, about their wedding reception. Elon apparently told her, quote, "I am the alpha in this marriage."
Wow. Yeah, that line, as Justine reportedly tells it, it does give you a sense of the dynamic she felt early on. It's a specific quote from the material that kind of sticks with you.
It does. And then, so tragically, their first child, a son, Nevada Alexander, he died from sepsites, just 10 weeks old.
Yeah, the source includes Justine describing that moment, putting him down for a nap, and he just stopped breathing. It's heartbreakingly detailed in her account.
Just awful. A profound loss, as the material puts it. And according to these sources, that led them to turn to IVF.
Right, for their subsequent children.
And that resulted in 5 more children. First, twins, Vivian Griffin,
Mm-hmm.
and then triplets, Kai, Saxon, and Damien.
So that 6 children was Justine in total. Although one source actually notes that even Vivian apparently joked about losing track sometimes, saying it's a good 2 truths and a lie fact.
Huh, I can imagine. And Vivian's situation, it gets quite a bit of focus in these sources, doesn't it?
It does. We learn about her petitioning to legally change her name,
Yeah.
To reflect her gender identity. And there's a really powerful quote attributed to that filing.
Yeah, that's it.
She apparently wrote, "She no longer lives with or wishes to be related to my biological father in any way, shape, or form."
Wow, that's incredibly direct and documented right there in the sources.
Yep.
The material digs in more too, right? There's that Teen Vogue interview from March 2025.
Yeah, exactly. She reportedly talked about moving from LA to Japan, said she hadn't actually spoken to her father since 2020.
And her description of him in that interview, wasn't it something like a pathetic man-child?
That's the quote used in the source, yes.
Sure.
Pathetic man-child. And she added something like being rich doesn't make her scared of him.
Okay. But the sources also cover his side, right? There was an interview mentioned from July 2024.
Yes. He reportedly used her birth name when talking about her and said he'd lost my son, essentially.
And he attributed it to the woke mind virus. That phrase comes up.
That's the term reported in the source, yes. And he also claimed, apparently, that he was somehow tricked into signing off on medical documents for her gender-affirming care.
But hang on, the sources also have Vivian's response to that, don't they? Via NBC News?
They do. She reportedly disputed that whole tricked claim, saying he was not by any means tricked and knew perfectly well about potential side effects.
But this is really interesting. You see how the sources lay out these totally conflicting stories from father and child?
Exactly, side by side.
It really highlights how public these private disputes become for people like this, as shown right here in these reports.
Precisely. You just see the different narratives presented for you to, well, consider. Meanwhile, the sources also mention the other kids from that first marriage, briefly.
Like the Pope meeting.
Yeah, there's a note about him taking Griffin and the triplets to meet Pope Francis back in 2022. And apparently, Elon made some self-deprecating joke about his own suit being tragic.
Huh. Just a little human detail thrown in there in the coverage.
Adds a bit of flavor, yeah.
Okay, so moving on from his first marriage, the sources then talk quite a bit about Grimes, the musician, his ex-girlfriend.
Right. Their relationship was reportedly on again, off again for about 4 years or so.
And the sources really emphasize how fluid their status seemed to be, publicly at least.
Famously fluid, yeah. Elon was quoted back in September 2021 saying they were probably semi-separated.
Then Grimes told Vanity Fair in March 2022 something different.
Hmm. She said they live in separate houses, but also were best friends. But then later she tweeted they'd broke it up again.
Right, but still called him her best friend and the love of my life. It's a lot to track.
This sort of shifting public description is definitely a key thing the sources highlight about them.
And the sources detail 3 children they had together. The first one, born in 2020, originally named XAA12.
That name got a lot of attention. And the material notes they tweaked the spelling later to XAA, apparently to comply with California naming laws.
Right, no numbers allowed or something. And Grimes' explanation for the name.
Yeah.
The sources capture that too, don't they, from her social media?
Oh, yeah, it's pretty unique. She described X as the unknown variable. A was her elfin spelling of AI, meaning love or artificial intelligence.
Okay.
And A12, she said, was the precursor to SR-17, their favorite aircraft. No weapons, no defenses, just speed, great in battle, but non-violent. Plus some mentions of Archangel and Metal Rat.
Wow, so it's like layered with all these references, as she explained it in the sources anyway.
Definitely not a typical name choice, no.
And then their second child, revealed in that same 2022 Vanity Fair piece with Grimes.
Yes, a daughter, Exodark Cedar Rail, and she was reportedly welcomed via surrogate.
Another very distinctive name. Did the sources give Grimes' explanation for that one too?
They did. Related to exa floppies, like in supercomputing, dark for the unknown, dark matter, the beautiful mystery of our universe.
Okay.
And sidereal, pronounced sidereal eel. She said that refers to true time of the universe, star time, deep space time, not Earth time, and also a nod to Galadriel from Lord of the Rings.
Huh. And the Walter Isaacson biography that's cited in the sources, that confirms the surrogacy for Exa.
Yes, it confirms Exa was born via surrogate in December 2021.
And didn't that biography also reveal a third child?
It did. That book came out in 2023, and it mentioned that around Father's Day 2022, they welcomed another child named Technomechanicus, named Tau.
Also via surrogate.
Also reportedly via surrogate, yes.
Yes.
The book apparently even had a photo of Elon feeding the baby boy.
So 3 kids with Grimes, 2 born via surrogate, according to these sources. Now, the sources also include some pretty raw public statements from Grimes, right, from November 2024, about her struggles.
Yeah, those were quite striking. She reportedly talked about spending a year locked in battle, implying custody issues. Said her social media and modeling were being used against her somehow.
And she talked about, didn't she say something about fighting and detaching from the love of my life as he becomes unrecognizable?
That's the quote reported in the source, yeah. Very personal stuff shared publicly. She also claims she was kept from one of her kids for 5 months.
Wow. And felt she was fighting with only a fraction of his resources.
Right. And she expressed frustration, saying she's tried begging him and the public to keep the kids offline, even tried legal routes.
Finds it insane there isn't a clearer way to handle the public side of it all, wants it behind closed doors.
Basically, yes. That's the picture her reported statements paint in these sources: intense personal challenges around privacy, co-parenting, all under this huge public spotlight.
Yeah, her perspective definitely comes through strongly in the material.
It's clearly laid out there, yeah.
Okay. Now, the sources shift gears again and introduce another mother, Siobhan Zillis, an executive at Neuralink.
Right. And the sources indicate they have 4 children together.
4. Okay. How did that come out?
Well, the first 2 were revealed back in 2022. Business Insider published court documents showing Elon had twins with Siobhan in November 2021.
Ah, through documents. And the sources note that around that same time, Elon tweeted about the underpopulation crisis.
Yes, that connection is made in the reporting. He tweeted he was doing his best to help the underpopulation crisis, calling a collapsing birth rate the biggest danger civilization faces by far. The timing was noted.
Interesting timing. And do we know the twins' names from the sources?
Yes, the Walter Isaacson biography, again cited as a source, gives their full names: Strider Sekar Sirius and Azure Astra Alice.
Strider and Azure. Okay. And then there was a third child.
A daughter named Arcadia, born February 28, 2024.
And Elon confirmed that one.
He did, in June 2024. Told Page 6 something like, "All our friends and family know," and added that just because they didn't issue a press release, which he called bizarre, it doesn't mean it's a secret.
Okay, fair enough. And Siobhan acknowledged her too.
Yeah, she apparently tweeted about Arcadia's first birthday in February 2025, according to the sources.
And wasn't there a fourth? Even more recently?
Yes, just this past February 2025, the sources report Siobhan announced their 4th child on X. a son named Selden Lycurgus.
Selden Lycurgus. So that's Strider, Azure, Arcadia, and Selden. That brings the count with Siobhan Zilis to 4 children reported in these sources.
That's right. Siobhan's tweet about Selden apparently mentioned him joining the twins in Arcadia, described him as built like a juggernaut with a solid heart of gold,
And Elon responded to that
with
tweet.
a heart emoji, according to the source. Just these little public acknowledgments, they add to the story the sources are telling about their family.
They do. It shows kind of the different ways people are choosing to share or confirm this news, as reported anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, now the final situation covered in these sources. This one involves Ashley St. Clair, who's described as a conservative influencer, and her son, Romulus.
Right. And this situation, as presented in the material, it includes some public uncertainty, particularly from one side.
How so?
Well, the sources report that on Valentine's Day 2025, Ashley St. Clair went on X and announced that Elon Musk is the father of her son, Romulus. The baby was born about 5 months earlier in 2024.
And she gave a reason for going public.
Yes, according to the sources, she said tabloid media were going to report it anyway, and she wanted her child to grow up in a normal and safe environment. She also apparently asked for privacy and filed for sole custody.
Okay. But the key detail here from the sources is Elon's response, right? On X, March 31st.
Exactly. That's central to how the sources frame this. He reportedly stated, quote, "I don't know if the child is mine or not, but I'm not against finding out." That public declaration of uncertainty from him.
Right. Explicitly saying he doesn't know.
Yeah.
But the sources also report him saying he's given her money.
Yes, despite that stated uncertainty, he reportedly said he has given Ashley $2.5 million and sends her $500,000 per year.
Okay. And then there was that Wall Street Journal article mentioned from April about an alleged offer.
Yeah, the sources include details from that. It alleged that Elon staffer Jared Birchall made an offer, claimed it was $15 million plus $100,000 a month in child support.
In exchange for what?
In exchange for her silence about the baby, apparently.
But she didn't take it.
The sources report Ashley said she turned down that alleged offer. Her stated reason, according to the reports, don't want my son to feel like he's a secret.
Okay. So what really stands out here, reading these sources, is you have these very different public claims.
Totally. Ashley's assertion of paternity, Elon's public statement of uncertainty, coupled with the reported financial support, and then this report about an alleged multi-million-dollar offer for silence.
The material just lays out all these different pieces of a really complex, very public situation.
Exactly. We're just relaying what the sources themselves contain, which includes these distinct claims and reported actions from everyone involved. It really shows how messy these personal things can get when played out in public, as documented here.
Definitely. And, just to be complete about the sources, we focus mainly on the children and the 4 mothers identified. But the material you shared did also briefly mention his parents, May and Errol Musk, his siblings, Kimball and Tosca.
And even touched on ex-wife Tallulah Riley and ex-girlfriend Amber Heard.
Right. But the real core of this deep dive, based on the material provided, was digging into the details around the kids and these 4 women.
And by sticking just to that, focusing on what's in these specific sources, we've hopefully distilled the key information presented there.
So, yeah, we've kind of journeyed through the landscape these sources map out. Started with Justine Wilson, their 6 children. Moved to Grimes, the 3 kids with those very memorable names.
Then Siobhan Zilis, the 4 children, acknowledged publicly over time. And finally, this situation with Ashley St. Clair and her son, Romulus, with all the conflicting accounts detailed in the reports.
And it brings us back to that number we started with, 14 children mentioned across these 4 relationships in these sources.
And we pulled out some specifics, didn't we? Like the meanings Grimes apparently gave for the names, the very different stories told by individuals about certain events, and just how incredibly public these private lives seem to be, all based directly on this source material.
Yeah, that was the aim. To give you a focused, pretty efficient understanding of the picture painted just by this specific stack of sources we looked at today.
So thinking about all that, the different kinds of relationships described, the conflicting perspectives people shared publicly in these sources, the privacy challenges that keep coming up.
Yeah.
What does this deep dive maybe reveal to you about trying to navigate family life when you're constantly, intensely in the public eye?
Yeah, what questions does it raise for you? Maybe about transparency versus privacy, or about the different ways people choose to tell or maybe not tell their own stories when the world is watching. Something to think about.